India is playing a game. Few nations dare to attempt a game where the stakes are not only about lights in homes or fuel in engines, but about power on the world stage. For decades, energy has defined empires. It determined who won wars, who built industries, and who set the rules of the global economy. Today, as the world staggers between climate promises and energy crises, India is writing its own chapter, a chapter that could change the balance of power in this century. India's story begins with an old paradox. For most of its modern history, energy was both its strength and its vulnerability. Coal powered its railways, factories, and cities, but it also chained the country to a past of smog-filled skies and import bills that strained the economy. Oil, the lifeblood of mobility and manufacturing, had to be imported, leaving India at the mercy of volatile global markets and the politics of the Middle East. In the 1970s, oil shocks sent tremors through its economy. Even in the 1990s, as India opened its markets, energy dependency loomed like a shadow. The truth was stark: without affordable and secure energy, India's dream of becoming a global power would remain a dream. Fast forward to today, India is no longer content with being a passive player in the energy game. It is the fastest growing major economy, projected to become the third largest by 2030. Its population, 1.4 billion strong, is urbanizing, consuming and demanding more energy than ever before. By 2045, India will account for the single largest share of global energy demand growth. The old model, coal-heavy, oil-dependent, is unsustainable. It pollutes the air, fuels climate disasters, and locks India into strategic dependence. So India is making a bet, a massive high-stakes bet, to secure its future through a three-pronged strategy: lock in gas for stability, unleash renewables for growth, and control critical minerals for the future of clean technology. Let us start with the most immediate pillar of this strategy: liquefied natural gas, or LNG. For decades, natural gas has been a minor player in India's energy mix, accounting for barely 6%. But Prime Minister Modi wants that figure to more than double by 2030, reaching 15%. Why? Because LNG offers something both coal and renewables cannot: stability. It is cleaner than coal, reducing emissions, and unlike solar and wind, it is not hostage to the weather. Gas is the bridge fuel that can keep India's industries running, its power grids stable, and its cities breathing cleaner air during the long transition to a green economy. But LNG is not just about pipelines and terminals. It is about geopolitics. In 2022, Europe learned this the hard way when Russian gas supplies collapsed. Energy security is now the currency of power, and India is determined not to be caught unprepared. That is why New Delhi is signing deals that will echo for decades. State-owned GAIL is negotiating with Alaska LNG for a 5 to 10-year supply contract starting 2027, securing U.S. gas at stable prices. In the Gulf, India is locking in LNG from ADNOC in the UAE through multi-year agreements totaling over 3.6 million tons annually, starting in 2026. In Qatar, India has renewed a massive 20-year contract at rates that will save billions of dollars over its lifetime. French giant Total Energies is partnering with Indian firms to diversify imports and reduce reliance on any single supplier. These deals do more than keep the lights on. They buy India insurance against global shocks and strengthen its hand in global diplomacy. Yet LNG is only part of the story. The real transformation, the gamble that could redefine India's energy identity, is happening in renewables. India is not merely adopting green energy, it is scaling it at a speed and size the world has rarely seen. In the sun-scorched deserts of Gujarat, a project of almost mythical proportions is rising, the Khavda Renewable Energy Park. Imagine an expanse as vast as a city-state, bristling with solar panels and wind turbines, generating 30 gigawatts of clean power. That is more capacity than the entire power generation of some nations. This single site, sitting on the edge of the Pakistan border, is a symbol of India's ambition, a statement that the energy superpowers of the future will not be those who own oil fields, but those who master the sun and wind. And Khavda is not alone. Across Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, and Andhra Pradesh, giant solar farms and wind corridors are transforming India's grid. The country has already surpassed its Paris Agreement targets, hitting 50% non-fossil capacity years ahead of schedule. And it is not stopping there. Through the International Solar Alliance, launched by Modi, India is turning solar power into a diplomatic tool, sharing technology, financing projects, and building cross-border grids under the vision of one sun, one world, one grid. This is not climate charity, it is strategic positioning. As nations scramble to decarbonize, India wants to be the supplier, the partner, the leader. But clean energy comes with its own dependencies. Solar panels, batteries, electric vehicles all depend on critical minerals like lithium, cobalt, and rare earths. Today, China dominates these supply chains, controlling over 60% of global lithium processing. For India, that is an unacceptable risk, so it is moving aggressively to secure alternative sources. New Delhi is negotiating in Latin America's lithium triangle, Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, while investing in African mines and partnering with Australia on rare earth elements. These moves are not headlines, they are lifelines for a green economy. Without them, India's renewable revolution would be built on shaky ground. This energy play is also reshaping India's foreign policy. Energy is becoming a cornerstone of India's diplomacy, from the Middle East to Africa to Southeast Asia. In the Gulf, India is deepening ties with the UAE and Saudi Arabia, not just as oil buyers, but as investors and technology partners. In Africa, Indian companies are building solar parks and transmission lines. In South Asia, projects like the Bangladesh-India Friendship Pipeline and cross-border electricity trade with Nepal and Bhutan are knitting together a regional energy network with India at its hub. Even the Quad, India's partnership with the US, Japan, and Australia, has an energy dimension, with collaboration on clean technology and supply chain resilience. Energy is not just about electrons and molecules anymore. It is about influence and alignment in a fragmented world. But this grand vision is not without risks. Critics warn that locking into long-term LNG contracts could slow India's transition to net zero by 2070. Environmentalists point out that mega projects like Khavda displace communities and raise ecological concerns. Financial analysts question whether India can mobilize the hundreds of billions needed for this transition without straining public debt. And then there is coal, the elephant in the room. Despite record renewable additions, coal still accounts for nearly 70% of India's power generation. Phasing it out will be a Herculean task. Yet despite these challenges, one fact stands out. India is not choosing between energy security and sustainability. It is choosing both. It is hedging its bets across LNG, renewables, and minerals, playing a long game that few developing nations have the capacity or the courage to attempt. If it succeeds, India will not only meet its domestic needs, but emerge as a global energy power, shaping markets and norms for decades to come. The question is not whether India can afford this gamble. The question is whether the world can afford an India that fails. For if India cannot secure affordable, clean, and reliable energy, its growth will falter, its climate pledges will collapse, and global emissions will spiral out of control. But if India wins this bet, if it can turn deserts into solar kingdoms, strike LNG deals that stabilize its economy, and carve a place in the mineral supply chains of tomorrow, it will redefine what is possible for emerging economies. It will prove that development and decarbonization need not be enemies. It will become not just a consumer of energy, but a shaper of the global energy order. Modi's energy gamble is more than a policy. It is a vision of a nation that refuses to be a pawn in the energy chessboard of others, a nation determined to script its own destiny. And as this gamble plays out, the world would do well to watch, because India's energy future is not just India's story. In many ways, it is the story of the 21st century.